My name is Noah. I specialize in researching forgotten history, the gaps in the archives, the places the world deliberately chose to ignore. This obsession led me to Oakhaven, a secluded mountain town that exists on state maps, but has no entry in any modern census. 50 years ago, the town suffered what local legends call the Great Muting. Every single resident simultaneously lost the ability to form new acoustic memories. They remember their childhoods, but they can't remember yesterday's conversations, the sound of a song they heard last week, or even the name their town was given before the incident. They just call it the echo chamber. I convinced my former partner, Liam, a brilliant but troubled linguist, and our sound engineer, Sarah, to join me. Liam's flaw is a deep, repressed guilt over abandoning a former research partner in a difficult situation. A guilt I knew would surface under pressure. Sarah was our anchor, precise and skeptical. We drove into Oakhaven at dusk. The entrance was marked by a rotting sign that someone had scratched the original name off of, replacing it with the crude, chalked words, the chamber. The first thing we noticed was the profound silence. Not an empty silence, but a strained one, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The town was alive, lights were on. Clothes hung on lines, but it was eerily quiet. There was no background hum of daily life, no dogs barking, no car engines idling, no distant radio static. We set up our base in the only standing structure that felt safe, the abandoned local church. Sarah immediately set up her gear, which included a specialized sound spectrograph. She frowned. Noah, the environmental noise floor is almost zero. It's technically impossible. It's like the air is scrubbing the sound waves out. The townspeople were outwardly friendly, but profoundly unsettling. They would hold long conversations, only to repeat the exact same sentences, with the same intonation 5 minutes later. When I asked an elderly woman what the town's original name was, she looked panicked and started to cry. A moment later, she smiled brightly and offered us tea, completely forgetting my question. They were trapped in a 5-minute memory loop, defined by the erasure of acoustic input. They were forced to exist entirely in the present, with no verbal bridge to the past. That night, Liam and I were reviewing our audio recordings. The recordings were unnaturally clean, almost too perfect. But when Liam isolated a high-frequency band, he found it, woven beneath the silence, a faint, rhythmic, thrumming, low-frequency pulse that wasn't consistent like machinery, but biological, like a massive, distant heartbeat. Then came the first sign of the echo. We were discussing a theory when Liam suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went wide. He pointed at the wall where a piece of paint had peeled off, revealing the faint, faded shadow of a child's height measurement written in pencil. Noah, I can't remember what you just said. It's not a block, it's a void. The sound is gone from my head. He was panicked. The town's affliction was not just local, it was contagious. We were experiencing the first phase of the linguistic decay. The town wasn't forgetting itself. Something was actively consuming the memory of sound. We were now trapped in the chamber, and the silence was beginning to feed. The moment Liam couldn't recall my last sentence, the dynamic shifted from investigation to survival. The town's affliction was a parasitic sonic force, and it was accelerating its consumption in our presence. The low-frequency thrumming recorded on Sarah's spectrograph was now stronger, resonating through the church floor. We realized the echo chamber wasn't a metaphor. It was the name of the entity that lived here. We tried to talk to the town's oldest resident, a man named Silas, who was rumored to have witnessed the Great Muting. We had to write down our questions, as verbal answers vanished instantly. He scribbled a chilling response. The sound left the people, but it did not leave the place. It lives in the spaces between the words. He then drew a crude picture of a massive spiraling shadow emerging from a nearby abandoned quarry, the original source of the thrumming. As we prepared to investigate the quarry, Sarah made a horrifying discovery. Reviewing the initial audio recordings we took upon entering Oakhaven, she played back our first recorded conversation. She isolated the precise moment the thrumming began, and woven into that low frequency, she found a faint, distinct vocalization, not language, but a single, pure, unnervingly high-pitched wail. She enhanced the waveform. It wasn't random noise. It was the distorted sound of Liam's former research partner, the one he abandoned years ago. A sound of absolute, sudden terror. The echo chamber wasn't just erasing new memories. It was using the sounds of deep-seated guilt to draw its victims in and accelerate the decay. Liam's guilt, repressed for years, was now the echo's bait. He was visibly breaking down, his eyes darting, his breathing ragged. The silence that afflicted the town was exploiting acoustic guilt, the painful sound memories we wish we could erase. For the townspeople, it was the traumatic shock of the muting. For Liam, it was the sound of his partner's last desperate plea. We knew we had to confront the source. The quarry was a deep, desolate pit, smelling of sulfur and damp rock. The thrumming was now a physical presence, vibrating in our teeth and bones. Sarah swept the area with the spectrograph. The energy focused on a massive, perfectly circular, black pool of water at the base of the quarrier pool that mirrored the sky with unnerving perfection. This was the nexus. Suddenly, a localized wave of absolute silence hit us. Sarah's spectrograph flatlined. The thrumming stopped. In the sudden, profound vacuum, Liam screamed, a sound that was immediately swallowed. He pointed at the black water. The surface was perfectly still, but a ripple formed on the center ripple of pure sound energy. From the water emerged a dark, swirling mass of shadow, the acoustic ghost. It was a massive, shifting vortex of pure silence, and it was reaching for Liam. It didn't have eyes or limbs, but its intent was focused entirely on the acoustic memory tied to Liam's guilt. The echo chamber was ready to claim its most delicious death. The acoustic ghost, a vortex of shadow and sound-consuming energy, lunged out of the black water toward Liam, its form writhing with a horrifying, silent hunger. Liam froze, paralyzed by the sight and the internal onslaught of his guilt memory, the amplified sound of his partner's final terror. I knew I had to break the echo's focus, or Liam would be consumed, his life and memories erased forever. I grabbed the sonic emitter we had brought, a powerful audio generator meant for archival calibration. It was our only hope, to introduce a sound so chaotic and loud that it would shatter the parasitic silence. I knew the moment I activated it, my own acoustic memories would be put at extreme risk. I flicked the switch. The emitter screamed not, a noise I could hear externally, but a blinding physical force that hit the black water and the shadow entity. The sound spectrograph, which was now picking up the chaotic wave, flared crimson and then died. The acoustic ghost shrieked, a soundless scream that manifested as a blinding flash of white light, and recoiled, pulling back toward the water. This gave us precious seconds. Sarah grabbed Liam, who was shaking violently, and we scrambled away from the nexus. As we reached the lip of the quarry, I risked one last look. The black water was boiling, but the swirling shadow was reforming, retreating back into the liquid void. We had shocked it, but not destroyed it. We drove out of Oakhaven with desperate speed. As we crossed the town boundary, the lingering silence abruptly lifted. The world's sounds rushed back in the roar of the engine, the wind whipping past the windows, the sound of Sarah's panicked breathing. The relief was immediate, but the damage was done. Liam was silent. He couldn't speak, not because his throat was damaged, but because the echo had partially consumed his acoustic vocabulary. He knew what the words meant, but the sound of them was gone from his mind. He was forever trapped in a state of muted communication. For me, the contamination was subtle but profound. As I review the footage now, the psychological impact is terrifying. My own internal monologue is fractured. I keep forgetting the details of the investigation. And when I try to talk about the sound of the thrumming, the memory slips away, replaced by a momentary, terrifying void. The most chilling sign came 2 days later. Sarah, reviewing the raw audio from the moment I hit the emitter, found a tiny, crystalline recording a fraction of a second of the acoustic ghost's silent shriek. She analyzed it and played back the waveform translated into a visual image. It wasn't a shadow or a void. It was a human face, screaming in absolute agony, and that agony was familiar. It wasn't Liam's partner. It was mine. The echo chamber hadn't been created 50 years ago. It was merely established. The entity is a perpetual collector of acoustic memories, and the final sound it claims before a person is fully consumed is their own scream of realization. I may have escaped Oakhaven, but the parasitic silence is now latent in my mind, waiting for the right moment to feed. Every time I record silence, I hear a faint, distant thrumming, the sound of the echo chamber reminding me that my acoustic memories are merely a temporary loan. The consumption has begun, and one day soon, my own silent scream will complete the collection.